gone nowhere. Until I do, I'ma stay alone. If we can learn to love each other, then the truth will set you free. Oh, maybe pain and sorrow, there's no tomorrow. Will take a hold of me, baby, baby, baby. All alone, baby, won't you come along and hold me? I ain't the seventh son, but I know where I'm from. Let's head on, dead on, dead on down the highway. And maybe when we come back, by then you will have seen things my way. I don't want no skinny woman. A woman who's got no sense of style. I want a girl with a diamond ring on her finger. One who knows how to say nothing. I just can't find this girl nowhere. Until I do, I'ma stay alone.
I had a job interview the other day. Man said he liked the way I looked. He liked the way I shook his hand. And he said, I'm sorry, man. You know I really am, but we don't need nobody. I said, please, sir, you've no idea how badly I need the money. It's a joke that's run so bad that it's no longer funny. But ain't that the way it goes when nobody needs you? Ain't that the way it goes when nobody needs you? It started with a short yarn. It ended with a clear your throat cough. We did not say a word to each other, trapped inside that little box.
right, man. Let's get this rolling. I know I gotta change some of that music out. little bit more lively, I think, is what I want to change that to.
Yeah, I mean, you did a good job. I personally like your music selection. It's just me though.
We've been doing
guys.
jazz and blues now for like over a year, so.
We have. But hey, you can't knock the classics, man. Jazz and blues is really good stuff. But yeah, let's jump right into it. This is episode 67 of the update log. I had to think there for a second. It's been we've been gone for a minute, but think real life kind of necessitated a little bit of a break for a moment.
Can you tell by all the boxes in the background?
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't mind the boxes in the background.
Hey, at least we're not looking into your closet anymore.
Yeah. See, luckily I have a nice door on my closet. You don't have to stare at my clothes anymore. So there you go. That said, though, yeah, this is episode 67 of the Update Log. I'm Rob, your host. This is Greg, my co-host. And tonight we are going to dive into a couple of different things, but I have a question for you guys, for you as well, Greg, for the audience. Journey, when it comes to the video games that you play, and I'm going to narrow it down a little bit. We're talking about MMOs, co-op games, things like that. Things that you can play with friends. Journey or destination? And what I mean by that are you more of a I like to explore the world, kind of take it at my own pace kind of player, or are you looking to rush to end game or whatever the end game is for that game and get max level or top rank or whatever whatever that gameplay loop is, and that's it. No more closet skeletons.
It is, yeah, definitely Journey for me too. I mean, it's about the depth of the game.
Yeah. Likewise. I think Harper kind of has it right. Journey, it's both. It's the journey and destination. Both, I feel. More for me, it's more journey. I definitely like to get immersed in a game, get kind of sucked in, get pulled in for the time that I'm playing. Because as we all know, for the most part, once you reach whatever the end game amounts to, it's going to be more of the same thing. Whatever that gameplay loop is, it's going to be more of that. And again, that's not a negative. It's not a bad thing. It's just the reality of playing video games. Once you get to the end, that's either it's done, or if it's a multiplayer game or like an online game, live service game, it's going to repeat itself a little bit there. But that, again, not necessarily a bad thing. And I mean, well, as the title suggests, Warhammer 40K, in particular, for those of you who have been lucky enough to play Space Marine 2, that game.
Frey says it's about the aliens we kill along the way.
It's about the aliens we kill. That's right, damn it! It's about the aliens we kill along the way. He's not wrong though. For the Emperor.
Yeah, I might have taken that completely out of context, but that's the part that I found interesting.
For the Emperor, that's right. Yeah, we look, hate the heretic, the witch, and the alien. We don't tolerate them in this chat. For those of you who enjoy Warhammer 40K, you'll understand. But those of you who are new, so Saber Interactive, which is the studio that brought us Space Marine 1 and now Space Marine 2. At least I believe they also created Space Marine 1. Fairly sure it was Saber Interactive, right? No, never mind. It was Relic Entertainment. Saber picked up Space Marine 2. So thank God I looked that up. I don't want to give any incorrect information out there. So Space Marine 2 launched, what was it? 2 days ago? Yeah,
Was it 2
Monday.
days ago? Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's
Well, they had if you bought so they had obviously the game up for early purchase. And if you bought not the base game but the tier above the base game, you got 4 days early access. Which we'll discuss that too, because that's a hot topic. That's a hot button topic for a lot of people. And I understand why studios do it. And I don't think it's good for the player base to a degree. We'll get into that in a second, though. But yeah, Space Marine 2, and when was it? It was August 26th, I believe. The War Within, WoW's, is it its 9th or 10th expansion? Let me see how. Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Mist of Pandaria. No, it was Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, then Mist of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, Battle for Azeroth, Shadowlands, and now the War Within. Hopefully, I didn't miss any of them. They've had, I mean, the game's been around for going on 20 years. As a matter of fact, they'll be celebrating their 20th anniversary this November. It's like middle of November, I think. Will be 20 years of WoW. Yeah,
20 years.
20 years. Yeah, 30 years if you're counting Warcraft, which is where it originally began, where the Warcraft universe originally started. It's Warcraft. Anyway, not to get too off topic. So yeah, those two are kind of the big name games that have come out over the last, say, week and a half. Well, 2 weeks, I guess. Yeah, if I don't last classics, then yeah, it's the 9th. Those two games definitely epitomize the journey versus destination topic of conversation for tonight. And we'll start with Warhammer, Warhammer, the Warhammer Space Marine 2. Myself and actually Freybrand have been playing that quite a bit over the last couple of days. And I gotta say, while the campaign was a bit short, I think we beat it in like a couple of days of playtime, a couple hours here and there. So it's really not super long. The game managed to pack quite a bit of quality into that short amount of time, which is something that I think a lot of multiplayer games, be they just four player co-op, but they're live service, things like Helldivers 2 or Space Marine 2 or in similar games, not just first person shooters, but 4-player co-op. And then you have MMOs, which World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Online, thousands of players. I think that's something that they are missing in this day and age, and that ties into the whole journey piece. Meaning, from start of the game to what amounts as the end game, max level, max rank, whatever that might be, they don't have the meat they used to. They don't. Yeah, they don't have. So Harper's on Holy Pond's son. Can I buy Space Marine 2? Me. Did you buy Space Marine 1? No. Ha! That was his son asking for that. Yeah, definitely buy Space Marine 1 and play that one, and then buy Space Marine 2. And Freybrand is absolutely 100% correct. The quality
I
and
don't
the
know whether to say
combats.
good dad or bad dad. I mean, you just cost yourself more money, man.
Good dad because the story's worth it. The
It
story's
is.
worth it.
It
Warhammer
is.
40K universe, absolutely phenomenal universe. I mean, it's been around for 40 years. As a matter of fact, fun fact, we are talking about Warhammer 40K and World of Warcraft. Blizzard, when it first came out with StarCraft was supposed to be a Warhammer game. I can't remember exactly what happened there, but I believe they lost. I think they lost the rights to it or something like that. There was some hiccup there where they had to shift and create StarCraft, which a lot of people thought was going to flop. But to Blizzard's credit, they managed to turn it around, and StarCraft is a IP that's holding its own. Super super popular, in the RTS community, even to the points of esports. So kudos to them for that. That's right. Yeah, we're gonna turn him into a future initiate for the Dark Angels, or the unknown Grey Knights. But yeah, I mean, Frey Brand is absolutely correct. That game, despite the short playtime of the campaign, really touched on a lot of callbacks to the first game, and just the sheer immersion into the world of. In this case, you're playing as an Ultramarine, so one of the Space Marine chapters. Um, just really being pulled into the world. I mean, to the point where me and Frey, we were playing, and we had just finished a campaign. We had just finished one of the campaign missions, and we were going out to the hangar to head to another campaign mission. And he stops me. He's like, "Give me a second." And he does, because he play Frey Brand, for those of you who know, is a personal friend of ours, but he plays the tabletop version of Warhammer 40K, amongst reading the books and things like that. And there's a point system. There's you create your team, and I think the max is 2,000 points. He actually did the calculations on a scene that was going on.
That's a tournament max. But you can do,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, you can do more or less. They do
Okay.
have regular tournaments. There's a huge community for Warhammer 40K tabletop. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Games Workshop, for those of you who don't know, is in the UK, a UK-based company. I don't know where their headquartered store is, though. I want to say it's somewhere in London, but those of you in the UK, don't crucify me. I think it's in London, or it might be some. So I know it's in one of the major cities out there. But we were playing, and he stops me and he does calculation, and the Saber Entertainment did such a good job crafting that universe and really staying true to the lore that the arrayed host of Space Marines actually amounted to I think it was like 5 over the 2,000 point max.
Nottingham.
So, okay, so it's in Nottingham.
Right
gotcha.
where Robin Hood's from.
Yeah. But yeah, so they really paid attention to the world building aspect in that game, which is, again, not something that we. Okay, I'm not going to say it's not something that we see regularly anymore. To a degree, it is, but I think it's not something that we pay attention to as much as we used to. And I'm not speaking for everybody, but just the general consensus and the general, view that I've gotten of, the gaming community as a whole now. A lot of people, or a lot of the community, is more concerned, whether you're playing an MMO or playing, a cooperative game, are more concerned with getting to end game, getting to max level, getting the best in slot, which they had an actual battle company of Space Marines, which, yeah, exactly, they had again, which that amounts to about 2,000 points at the tournament level of play. But back to what I was saying, that I think has led to a lot of the problems that we've been seeing in the gaming industry, where games are not as weighty. We don't feel attached. We're not attached to them as we once were, and I think that is on both sides of the line. That's from a company perspective and from a player base perspective. Because I know this is going to be a hot topic, and this is just my opinion, but I think we're partially to blame for that. But before I continue, so what are your thoughts on that, Greg?
Wow, you laid out so much there. It's hard for me to say at this point.
Well, pick up anything. I don't care.
The only thing I've played, well, several times. I don't want to say many times, but I've played several times in the tabletop version. I've never actually entered like a tournament or anything like that. But My favorite chapter of Space Marines is actually not even a lore chapter. It's a homebrew chapter called Brown, and
Well, Brown.
all brown, yep, and all the Space Marines are in brown and gold armor, and their motto is when it absolutely positively has to die overnight.
So it's a play on the UPS. That's fucking great.
Anybody else that has any thoughts, go ahead and enter them in chat.
Yeah,
I'll be
go ahead.
monitoring that. So
Go ahead and drop your
I'm waiting for
thoughts
you to
on
tell me
that.
all about the gameplay and all this, because
Well,
I
so
know
the
I've been
game
watching you guys play, so I've been living vicariously through you.
Vicarious to us. All right, so the gameplay in Space Marine 2 is, aside from the atmosphere, they nailed the atmosphere. They nailed the look. They nailed the sound. They nailed it. They in a timely manner, whether it's ground, air, or space, or through the warp, they'll get it to you. Same day shipping.
All hail the Brown.
They nailed it. Saber Entertainment, they really did a good job. The gameplay, even though you're playing a Space Marine, which they're 2 meter tall, clad in power armor, half ton, in some cases a ton, super soldier fighting for ideally, well, not ideally, but a fascist regime that is the Empire of Man. The combat is fluid. The combat is weighty. It's accurate, almost to the T for the lore. The chain swords rip and tear like they're supposed to. The plasma weapons blow things away like they're supposed to. They even got the armor, the different types of Space Marine armor right, down to the minute detail. So they did a fantastic job there. But again, even though the campaign, again, roughly 6 hours ish is what I think myself and Frey got through it in. They also, they have other gameplay modes. They do have PvP, and they have something called Operations, which is their form of player versus environment, or PvE. And that it's basically a repeating series of of missions that you can do to level up your characters, weapons, and the class. There's 6 classes, I believe, each taking a different function, which again is in their each respective kind of combat style are representative of the different types of Space Marines. I mean, you have the Assault Marine, which uses jump packs and thunder hammers, which is this huge freaking 2-handed maul that literally, if you charge it up and you let it go, it cracks like thunder and blows things away. To my favorite class, which is the Bulwark, which is a sword and shield Space Marine, and again, very accurate to the lore. And yeah, we've only played on veteran so far, which is one step up from I guess the base difficulty.
So you guys have been taking it easy on yourselves then. It's like not even fair.
No, not really. Because again, in keeping with the accuracy of the world, absolutely fucking brutal. Absolutely brutal. And since we are having,
if you're playing against chaos, though, more enemies makes a lot of sense, because that's kind of chaos's motive. Is we're just gonna like saturate the battlefield with shit that wants to kill you. And
before we get too far ahead, I know we're having a little bit of an ad break here. So
are we?
For those who those who are not subscribed, I don't want to get too far ahead that they miss anything. So we're gonna hold here until the ad break is.
No, you got a couple minutes, and I'll snooze it. So we can put that off for a while. I did make that change just for the regulars to the channel. I did make the change because you have to have some form of ads, and I decided to go away from the pre-roll, because the pre-roll was like the option to having ads.
Okay.
So we're just doing short ads, and that way we don't have to deal with the pre-roll. Everybody can just come right on in and see what's going on.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, hell, that's even better. But yeah, so they again, and no, Greg, we're not taking it easy. Veteran is still difficult. As a matter of fact, they
That's
actually
what they
have
all
plans.
say.
Look, man, I'm telling you, all right, it's not easy. They do have play. Obviously, they Saber Interactive have put out a roadmap for the game, and they are ads for the ads god. Yeah, that's right. They've put out a roadmap, so there's tons of content coming out for the game. But again, circling back to the main piece here, Saber Interactive and games like it, they've paid attention to the lore. They've even for newcomers to the world, they showcase the fact that they care about your progress through the game because of the detail that they've put into everything from the side dialogues that you see with other ultramarines as you're moving around the ship to here's another cool point that surprised me when we came upon it. Your the operations that you get to do as after you finish the campaign or between each campaign mission, are actually an entirely other squad of Space Marines that are working to help the main campaign. So whenever you take on an operation, I think there's 6 operations right now, you're playing as that squad, which adds to the main story. It's things like that. It's elements like that that are stand out to me because we're not seeing them as much. And again, that's not to ding any studio. It's not a critique of any studio. I guess it's an indication that players are, while yes, we do want to get to max level. We want to be in the shiny stuff. Have the best weapon, have the the highest level character. There is something to be said, and there's something important about the journey to that endpoint. Or what is it? And again, this is live service. What's a temporary endpoint? Because as we get to the end game, if it's a live service game, you're going to keep adding stuff. So it doesn't remain the endpoint for long. But there's something to that journey. There's something to that tie-in for players where a lot of players still want that investment in the world that they're playing in. And we're going to talk about another game that does that very well with its most recent expansion, which is World of Warcraft. And that has a host of reasons behind it as to why. But I guess my next question to you, Greg, and to the audience: what do y'all think? Why do you guys think that over I will say the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a shift from the journey to the destination? And because there has been, I mean, I think we can all agree that whether it's a lot or a little or somewhere in between, there's definitely been a shift from the old school style of MMOs where we wanted to journey with our friends through games like World of Warcraft or EverQuest or hell, another game, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, Lord of the Rings Online, where that journey was important to us. That journey was interesting. Like we liked that. Now to where, well, let's just get to the end game, to the max level, to that piece. What do y'all think? I mean, Harper says quick satisfaction. I think that's part of it. Yes, the instant gratification of getting to end game, or getting the best in slot, the max level, that kind of thing. What about you, Greg?
She's got a point with the quick satisfaction piece, because that definitely there's many things that play a role, and that's a huge one.
Yeah.
I think though on a greater scale, it really comes down to the game companies reacting to how they make money. I mean, and who are they going to target in that sense? And people want to get to that position of, or there's a large portion of people that want that quick satisfaction. They want to get to the in-game content because that's where they're getting full use of their character, full use of their skill sets. They're getting able to get the best equipment, things like that. So there's a large portion of people that are willing to rush that. They're willing to, in essence, pay to win. And the game companies react to that. So, I mean, we as the players are responsible for that happening.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on that sense. Unfortunately, we're part of our own problem in that regard.
Right. Well, but here's the the flip side of that is there's a lot of unsuccessful MMOs that games that they might be really good games. I mean, most of the time, most
you never
of us don't even,
because
right. You don't even hear about it.
You blew past it, or you paid to boost your character. And again, I'm not trying to dog anybody or to get on any of the studios that have implemented that that option, because they were just answering a demand of the player base. And again, it's a double-edged sword in that I feel like that aspect of again being able to buy a character boost, because I mean, you see it in World of Warcraft, you see it in a number of different games, whether it's 4-player co-op or MMOs, live service. That has become a commonplace option, being able to swipe your credit card and get to max level.
I honestly, I don't have any issue with that. You know what I mean? It just is what it is, and some people prefer to play that way, because ultimately that's their that's their ambition.
That's the game their choice,
right? They want to get to I want to be everything that I can be as quickly as I possibly can, and then play the game, because that's ultimately that's the game to them. The end after the end game is when the game begins. But then you have a whole other audience out there, myself included, that I want to get engaged by the game. I want to learn about.
I want to get engaged from the time I log in.
Right.
Right. I want to get engaged.
I'm not going to go buy skill ups and all that stuff right off the bat. I'm going to play. And I want content there. I don't want to log into the game and have this walkthrough condition that gets me all the way to level 50 or whatever the in-game piece happens to be. I would rather have the experience of playing the game and get the opportunity to explore, especially these larger worlds. And that's the worlds are more and more there's a lot more depth to them. There's so many things, so many places you can go, things you can look at, things you can see.
Well, yes and no. I agree that there are a lot more depth than what we see, but part of the problem of the leveling process is that because of the option that you can pay your way, to max level, a lot of, and this is the negative side of that double-edged sword. A lot of companies, and even one of them being World of Warcraft for the longest time, but until very recently, they skimped on that aspect in certain ways.
Well, one of the problems for World of Warcraft, and I was talking with some people the other day, but I think one of the major shifts with World of Warcraft, two things. One is some of the lead writer, the content guy for World of Warcraft had actually left the game, went on to other projects. I think he actually went into designing tabletop RPG games.
So. For thinking of the same person, I think so. Yeah.
Right, but he came back to Blizzard, and I think maybe in large part probably because he was looking at his baby, something that he spent so much time working on and developing, and what was happening to it. And
again, guys, this is not us trying to dog on, even though yes, in the past we've got on Blizzard's case, but this is part of the reason why. Because we know, for those of us who've played back during Vanilla, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, we know what it was, and it seems we weren't the only ones. And we're going to get into this in a bit, but it seems like they've returned to form. And I've been playing again, Space Marine 2, I've been playing that, I've been playing The War Within. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but go ahead, Greg.
Well, the other part that's true to the characters is that, another thing that's changed is that forward projection, where they actually have planned releases out ahead for the development and expansion of the game, in which that hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah, they really haven't. It's very much, and I think because in terms of World of Warcraft, they've basically they with again Chris Metzen. For those of you who don't know, he was one of the lead writers and the lead writer, narrative writer for the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. I believe those two, and probably part of End of Vanilla, if I'm not mistaken. But definitely those first two expansions, which, if you know anything of those two expansions, they are still hailed as the best narrative expansions in World of Warcraft's history. I believe for most people, it's Wrath of the Lich King, then Burning Crusade, in that order. It changes, but I think for the most people, it's that order, narratively speaking, and for good reason, because they were focused more on story and that world building aspect. The end game, and the raids, and because here a lot of the times that would, especially in World of Warcraft as an example, what comes at end game or max level is raiding. The big uh, uh, multi-group multiplayer pieces of content. Where it's like I think it's max like 25 man raids. I can't remember off the top of my head now. It changes up. I mean, I remember at one time it was 40 people. Try getting 40 people together at a specific time on a specific day to do anything. Crazy. That's part of the reason why they switched from that
And with that
gameplay
many
loop.
people, the play is just crazy anyway.
Yeah, it's wild. But so yeah, rating Mythic, which is their like. If you ever played Final Fantasy 14, Mythic is kind of like their, I think, Savage and Nightmare tier stuff. I think if I'm remembering my Final Fantasy 14 lingo properly, apologies if I got it wrong. But basically, Mythic is their basically progression content for dungeons, whereas raiding that's their larger group content. Still hard, still stuff, but that's the end game content. Um, the narrative piece, the story piece that's written for that is kind of that lead in, and that was what a lot of players really enjoyed in things like Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King was the quest chains and the story elements that you can only experience by going through the game and getting to that aspect when you reach max level. Um, and that was missing from that game for quite a while, for quite a number of expansions. But with Chris Metzen returning, he definitely turned things on its head, narratively speaking. I mean, number one, as you said, Greg, there's they've planned a lot of that narrative story ahead of time. As a matter of fact, I believe they call it the World Soul Saga, which is supposed to span 3 expansions, which is the War Within's the first one, and there's two other ones that are going to come over that I believe the period of the next 6-ish years. If we're sticking to the same time frame of about 2 years per expansion, it'd be about 6 years. As someone, again, I've been playing it since before release because I got
Early.
one of the top editions. The overland content, so like the questing content, the things that most games nowadays don't really pay attention to, most players don't pay attention to, they showed that some love. They show that a lot of love. The quests have meat on their bones. The characters are fleshed out, and actually add to the zones that you're in. They add to the storytelling of each zone that you're in. They added an element to the world as well, called delves, which are, to put it plainly, they're overland content that is like a mini self-contained dungeon that has a story all its own, has mechanics and themes all their own that add to each of the zone, to add to the characters within those zones. But all of that is in an effort to add to that journey that's pointing you to the destination. Yes, everything's still, all roads lead to the X, to, the X marks the spot. But the journey along that road has so much more to it now than previous expansions, that I'm not in a rush. Granted, my character is actually max level, but I'm not in a rush to get through the content to finish it. I want to see what the story has in store for me. We've got a couple of comments that I completely freaking missed. Apologies, chat.
But you were just going on there, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I went on a roll, man. I apologize. But let's backtrack a little bit. Kind of answer some of these comments. So Harper said a different generation that companies are looking to appeal to younger generations with different things they want out of games, and that's absolutely true. Myself, Harper, Frey, Greg, we were a part of that generation that were there when online gaming started and then took off. So we got to experience that. And for a lot of us, we were all, we all logged into those games with everybody else who was doing it at the time. And no one knew what the fuck to do. We were all just like, okay, what happens? Like, what are these? What are keybinds? What are hotkeys? What's questing? What's a questing hub? What's that exclamation point thing above that dude's head? Who do I go to next? We were all learning and experiencing this new environment called an MMO. Even though obviously there's things like EverQuest and Ultima Online and Dark Age of Camelot. So the whole MMO thing isn't necessarily new, but it really didn't take off until things like EverQuest, until like World of Warcraft came on the scene, where a lot of people really got into it, and we all kind of experienced that at the same time. So the journey for all of us, we all experienced that together. And I think over the last 10 to 15 years, because of the shift in generation, as Harper mentioned, and the shift in what I don't want to say the majority of players, but what a lot of players wanted out of their games, shifted to the destination as opposed to the journey. And again, that's neither good nor bad. Everyone's going to have their opinion. It just is what it is. It's something I think companies and players, both, I guess, old school players, I'm going to use air quotes there because, I consider myself an old school game player. But older generations of gamers and newer generations of gamers are wanting and expecting different things from game companies nowadays. And they're doing their best to adjust. They're doing, game studios are doing their best to have a compelling journey, a journey that's going to invite you and invest you into the world on the one hand, and on the other hand, adding to the end game piece. And that's a tough thing to do. That's definitely a tough thing from a developer perspective, tough thing to do. So, I take my hat off to all of them. Blizzard, all of them, because it's a tough thing to do. It's a tough piece to answer there. And Freybrand is, again, I think he's, as he said at the beginning of the stream, he's one of those individuals who likes the journey, and he's admitted to, when I've paid to boost to endgame, I never really felt like I enjoyed it as much versus going through the game and learning the class or features. And that is another thing. That is something else that is both a double-edged sword, where when you're rushing to endgame, you can really miss the nuance of the class that you're trying to play. You can miss the elements of the game from a mechanical and kind of gameplay perspective that you might have not missed had you kind of, paid attention and stopped to really take things in. I don't think I've ever, no, I've boosted characters before. I have, for sure. But I've only boosted characters after I've understood the game itself. A perfect example is with World of Warcraft. I took one of the boosts that came with my purchase, and I boosted a druid at the time to level 70, and then I leveled him the last 10 levels to level 80, which is the current max. But I've played World of Warcraft, a number of times over the years, so I understand how the game works, more or less. I'm not a professional or anything like that, but I understand the gameplay loops. Let's see what we have. Okay, Harper says raids are 10 to 25. Okay, so yeah, they've adjusted that. Oh, okay. So apparently the next 2 expansions are World of Warcraft Midnight, and then World of Warcraft: The Last Titan. Interesting names. I wonder if those are just project names or actual. Those are going to be the names of the expansions. EverQuest. Anybody here's played EverQuest? Anybody? Greg? You seem like an EverQuest guy.
Really, I do.
Yeah, I do.
I think you struggle with identifying EverQuest guys. I did play EverQuest at one point in time, but as a TTRPG, not as a game as an MMO online.
I didn't know it was a TTRPG. What was your first MMO, Greg?
My first MMO was actually Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy Online.
Square
when
Enix.
Did that come out?
Oh man, that was.
I know that came. I think that came out before.
Like 2000. Yeah.
Final Fantasy Online came out. No, not Final Fantasy 14. Damn it.
It's like 20-some years ago. I mean, it's both that in World of Warcraft. I actually think Final Fantasy Online was first, and then World of Warcraft.
Yes, I think you are correct. I typed it in. I find Final Fantasy Online, and it shows Final Fantasy 14. I know Final Fantasy Online. I think it's still active. I think. I'm not 100% sure.
Wow, that would be surprising, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that for a year or two actually. It's a fun game. And I can say the MMOs have come a very long way since, so.
They have. They very much have. But let's see what else we got in the chat here. So Harper says EverQuest was their first experience MMOs. That was an experience. That's one of mine. Yeah, it was one of mine, I believe. I remember Dark Age of Camelot for a bit there. I played Diablo, which is not necessarily MMO, but it was the first kind of online game that I really played besides Dark Age of Camelot. I remember more EverQuest than anything else. Before World of Warcraft, because I did play that. I remember EverQuest being extremely complicated for me. I was like, what in the hell? So that, yeah, RuneScape was another. That was another one that I played. Yep. RuneScape Brent says RuneScape taught me about economy and how to take advantage of it. Yeah, the RuneScape economy was interesting back in the day. Oh, also MMOs are also what you honed your typing skills on, huh, Frey? Fair enough.
I really enjoy the crafting and the economics in MMOs, as long as it has a good economic system. That's actually one challenging point. Is there's maybe even no MMOs that have a really good economic system in them, but yeah, some are better than others. So.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I've economic systems within anything. I mean, the real world or in a video game landscape are something that I've tried to get into. Some of it goes above my head. I will fully admit that. And again, I agree with you, Greg. Some are better than others.
From what I have seen, World of Warcraft's economics, I've only started watching it recently, so there's a long gap in there. So I'm not really sure what it used to be like, but it actually looks interesting again. So
it was definitely interesting at the time. I have a gripe with their economic system nowadays, and that has to do with their WoW token, which, for those of you who don't know, is a token that you can buy that gives you, a player, I think you spend $15 or $20, something like that. I don't know how the whole process works, but I know it's something that you can buy both with money real world money or in-game gold. Now, if you're on the using your credit card or your debit card, whatever you want to use to pay for that, you can get a huge influx of gold very, very quickly, which kind of skews the economy a little bit, and that's part of the reason why I don't necessarily like it. It's been around World of Warcraft for years now, and I understand why they did it. To give players who are good at farming in-game currency, which is gold, an option to have that be how they pay for their game time. So that's one reason why they did it. And another reason, to be honest, it does get Blizzard quite a bit of money from people who just need a quick influx go. They drop $20-$40 and they have $500,000 gold right there. So hey, to each their own. Again, I'm not knocking it. If that's how you want to play, that's how you want to play. So Frey says, I finally remember being a kid on Christmas after opening presents, enjoying presents, logged in on RuneScape, and talking to the clan about who got what while selling the lobsters I spent the week catching. Fair enough. And it's things like that are I think add to that whole journey piece. It's the mundane options that games have put into their gameplay loops to add to the journey of, hey, enjoy the world that you're in, which I appreciate. I really do. Again, going, moving to World of Warcraft and the War Within, they really paid attention, like I was saying earlier, to the overland content. They really basically, from my understanding, with Chris Metzen returning, and I believe his official title is creative. Basically, he's the creative head of the entire World of Warcraft team. Was returning to the story-driven aspects of the MMO. So things like we're kind of returning to the roots of expansions like the Wrath of the Lich King and Burning Crusade, where the story played an integral part of the whole piece. And it shows. It shows in the overland content that they've added. Again, delves having their own little pocket-sized, storytelling piece. The side quests. I mean, I've been playing a lot of the side quests, and before, when I would play WoW, I mean, even way back when, I didn't rush, or rather, I didn't skip through the narration of the side quests. I didn't skip reading that stuff, but I definitely kind of moved. Like I didn't want to spend. I wanted to get back to playing the game, but I think the way they've approached this expansion, they've done their best and done a very good job at it of marrying the narrative to the gameplay, and really you as the player, making you as the player care about the story and not just wanting to play the game. Basically, the narrative is in addition to playing the game. Like it's kind of a icing on an already good cake. But I'm definitely excited to get to endgame. And I know we've talked about the journey. But how do I phrase this question to you guys? How do you guys feel about the endgame? Like when you finally get there, what has there been a game that when you've finally gotten to max level, or what accounts as the end game, you've been excited? Greg, anybody? Everybody.
Well, the two games that we're talking about tonight, I have only watched, so I haven't actually played. It's been years since I played World of Warcraft, and I haven't played Space Marine yet. So I'm like I said, living vicariously through you guys. I watch you guys destroy all the stuff, and that's cool.
Have fun. Okay. So Freybrand says Guild Wars 1. I remember Guild Wars 1. That was yeah. Guild Wars 1 was a narrative masterpiece for its time, for sure.
ever really had a group.
Yeah,
Every MMO is funner if you have a group. That's that's one of the big things with MMOs, in my opinion. It's one of the big things with MMOs is the camaraderie piece. That's the main reason for playing the game, is the fact that you get you get that human element. You get actual real people that are out there doing things that you can interact with. Obviously, you're interacting with their avatars, but I mean, it's better than. I do like first-person only single player games. I don't want to say I don't. I love them, but it's after you play for a while on a single-person game, and all you hear is the same. I was an adventurer until I got an arrow in my knee. I mean, you can only hear that so many times before it's like, really?
No, I get you. MMOs are, and multiplayer games, just in general, are there to be played with other people. So that's an interesting phenomenon that I think we can probably discuss in more detail at another time. The whole, people who want to play an MMO but want to do it solo. That's an interesting, dichotomy there, where you're in a world where it's inherently built to be played with other people, but you want to do it solo. And here's the thing: in Blizzard's defense, and to kind of tip my hat to them, they've addressed that as well in the War Within, namely with delves and overland content, where they've made it so that people who are more inclined to play by themselves or want to play by themselves can do so. They've really, I respect Blizzard's current effort to really try to answer a lot of problems that not only their game has seen, but a lot of games have seen, namely the journey piece, returning to form in that aspect, the end game piece, where they've put a roadmap out for season 1, which actually just started yesterday, of the War Within, and are being very, very open and communicative with the community on what that's going to look like. So that's something that and again, with regards to those folks who like to play solo in an MMO, they've tried to answer that too. And I think they're really, how do I put this? They're doing the best to answer the changing landscape of gaming. They're trying to answer that, the piece of folks that want to push the end game and get to the rating and get to the higher, harder tier content. They're addressing that. They're addressing the folks who want to take their time and really level. It's not a perfect system. There's still some areas they can improve at. Like, I'll say this: the leveling from 1 to 70, or 1 to 80 in this case, you can do that in a couple hours if you really wanted to. And to be fair, that's most games nowadays. You can really just grind it out in a couple of hours, or pay for the the level boost.
So I think usually takes me a long time to play through the main game. And even with single person games like Cyberpunk 2077, and it literally took me months to play through the main game, because I just don't. That's my style of play. I don't really care about the end.
You're not rushing. Yeah, you're not rushing.
I want to absorb the world and get into the. I want to actually get engaged in it, not just get to the end. So I'm like, oh, I beat it. Whew.
Well, here's another thing, and I know we've been having this conversation.
Smell the flowers, absolutely.
The journey. Yeah, smell the flowers. Well, we've been having a conversation about that, but here's the other side of that.
Unfortunately, in 2077, they kind of smell like garbage, but I mean,
Yeah, probably. If you even find real flowers.
Can't have everything, right?
Yeah. But here's the other side of that particular conversation, the conversation we've been having, is that the player base has kind of, in a way, created that problem where people are rushing to endgame, rushing to max level. And again, everybody wants to play how they want to play. Completely understand. That's how you want to play. Hey, more power to you. Play the way you want to play. And if spending the extra money to get to max level day one is what you want to do, hey, go ahead, man. And companies are facilitating that. So it's an interesting scenario where we as a community, as a gaming community, find ourselves in, where you do have people who want to get to max level, want to get to the destination, and studios are games are attempting to answer that want. But there's a problem there, that I think both players and studios are still having, where once you get to max level, once you get to the end game content, what do you normally end up doing? You end up running the same content over and over again. Because studios can only put out content, at
You go into PvP and start killing people.
Well, yeah, there's that. But and here's the thing, there are players who are understanding of that aspect, who are like, hey, look, I know I've either rushed it to end game, or I've paid to get there, whatever form they got there. And they understand, like, hey, I'm at max, like, this is the content available to me. But there's still parts of the community that complain about the lack of content at end game. And in some cases, there is a legitimate critique there. One of them being one of the games we discussed earlier, which was Space Marine 2. Only having those 6 operations and PvP as their form of endgame, and such a short campaign. So that is a critique. And I'm again, if I had to give Space Marine 1 critique, that would be the one that comes to mind immediately, is that there, aside from the short campaign, there really isn't, I don't want to say meaningful, because I think that's not accurate, because that content is meaningful. It's, how do I put this?
Just not
but
enough.
Understanding that understanding that there's going to be a finite amount of content.
It's kind of like you just get into the story and into a good groove, and it's done. I mean,
and it's done. Yeah.
It's like when they kill your favorite television show.
And see, Unholy Pawn says, there are gamers that want instant gratification and be the best, and there are others that want to complete everything, pick every flower, find every location. Yeah, absolutely.
Why you call me out like that, Unholy Pawn?
Well, here's the thing. I think with the landscape changing the way it is, because you're starting to see it. If you're at least from my perspective, I'm starting to see it where you're getting a marriage of the two. You're getting people who are wanting to get invested in a game, get invested in the journey, get to end game, but not rush to get there. And in World of Warcraft: The War Within is a perfect example where, myself and Harper actually, we had this conversation where you had players who, were used to rushing to get to end game because that was what you did for so many years up until this particular expansion. And they find themselves like, man, I wish I hadn't rushed, or going back to kind of, either making a new character or kind of just going back to earlier zones within the expansion to play those side quests, or making alts to do it. I think Unholy Pawn, I think there's a shift. There's another shift happening where you're starting to get a marriage of those two kind of gameplay loops, where you're having people who are taking their time now, still want to get to end game, but are still taking their time to enjoy the content that's put out through the journey. And Harper says that was the biggest argument against WoW's Battle for Azeroth. When you say that, Harper, what do you mean? Like the lack of content at endgame? Oh, and yes, Harper, I'm a completionist as well. I love exploring every nook and cranny of a game, turning over every rock, reading, every side quest, things like that.
Collecting all the things and stuff.
So Freybren says, I just want to stand on a hill, holding the company standard and fighting off endless waves of traitors and fiends with my battle brothers. And we did do that. They did have that in the game, and it was as epic as you would fucking think. It was amazing. And then Frey Brian is talking about Space Marine 2. Spoilers for those who have not gotten there yet, and for those who may want to play in the future. This is your spoiler alert. There is a portion in the story, it's towards the end, where you stand on a hill with a company of Ultramarines as traders and chaos flood in, and you're just mowing down everyone. You're just firing off round after round, cleaving into them with your chain swords, and it is fucking amazing. And again, Saber Interactive or Entertainment, whichever one applies. Sorry, I'm too excited. Absolutely fucking nailed it. They absolutely nailed that whole piece. For Warhammer 40K to the max, you can sum it up in that one scene where you're on the hill, the battle standard of the Ultramarines. And yeah, I believe at that point, Frey, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the chapter master had already had that awesome scene where he steps off the back of the fucking cruiser. Fucking amazing. So yeah, spoiler alert, guys. And Harper says there's too much focus on PvP, which is a smaller portion of the people that played WoW at the time, and I believe they're talking about Battle for Azeroth in World of Warcraft. And I believe, yeah, from what I remember of that, yeah, that was kind of it. So it made a lot of us that wanted to PvE content feeling we didn't have much. Okay, and unfortunately, yeah, to get certain parts of the story information, it kind of you have to go PvP. And I think that is another element that's starting to shift within the landscape of live service, MMO, cooperative games, where you have multiple modes of gameplay, PvP, PvE.
It does start fun.
Are kind of are your two mainstays: player versus player versus environment. And I feel like companies and games now are starting to integrate the two in a way now that you get to pick the option and still progress the story or still progress your character. Meaning if you're more inclined to PvP, you can do that and still progress. If you're more inclined to PvE, you can do that and still progress. Which I think, honestly, I think that's a smart move overall. I think that it's answering the problem on either side there, where you have some people who enjoy PvE, you have some people who enjoy PvP, and they now get to pick the option on how they play. Okay, all right. So according to Harper, World of Warcraft did a lot better with the previous expansion, which was not the War Within. So, well, previous expansion from this one was, I'm trying to remember, was...
See, that's where you're going to have, you're going to have many different people with different opinions.
Someone help me out here. I can't remember which was the one before this. It wasn't Battle for Azeroth. It wasn't Shadowlands. Dragonflight. Fuck. There we go. I know I missed one. So the War Within is the 10th. Because that's right, yeah, Dragonflight. I can't believe I actually forgot about Dragonflight. Jesus. Dragonflight, yeah, was kind of the beginning of the turnaround for World of Warcraft, where it was narrative driven, and they started leaning into kind of that dual aspect of, if you want to play PvP, you can do that and progress. If you want to PvE and do that, you can progress. And now they've continued that with the War Within, apparently. And yeah, they really have, because I've seen a number of content creators who have talked about that in their own review of the game, where the options are many and how you want to progress your character. Even if you want to do delves, you can do delves and progress your character. And that's the solo content. Question though. Who here's played Lord of the Rings online? Anyone? Has anyone ever taken a stab at that particular gem? Greg, are you frozen? Because you're sitting oddly still.
Nope, I'm just sitting oddly still.
Oh, okay. You said way too still. I was like, did he freeze? So for those of you who don't know of Lord of the Rings Online, highly recommended, especially if you're a Tolkien fan. That is a game that takes the journey aspect of this conversation to a whole new level. Now that game is approaching 17 years, 16, 17 years. I think they're approaching. I think next year will be their 17th year. And I know people who don't have max level characters because the journey is that seems to be what people really enjoy of that game. And as someone, I have played a bit of Lord of the Rings Online over the last couple months, and I think they hit on something that games like World of Warcraft had and are returning to, is the story aspect, is the investment in the world. Even though it is a dated game in some respects, the overland content really immerses you in the world. And I feel like, and again, I can't say it for sure, but I feel like the narrative team at World of Warcraft and Chris Metzen and those folks, the guys who are leading the charge in that regard, might have looked at games like games like Lord of the Rings Online and others who are narratively driven and said, hey, we need to do a little bit more of that. Because again, for the longest time, I'd say between Wrath of the Lich King and Dragonflight, so that's 5+ expansions. After talking to people, where people didn't really care about the side content, they were just focused, again on the destination, on the end game. But now, they're really diving into that side quest content, and it's meaningful too. And that's another thing. I feel like they've done it in such a way where it doesn't feel like fluff. It doesn't feel like padding. It's meaningful. And Unholy Pawn says, imagine a game where you could progress with PvE, PvP, PvE, crafting, being a merchant, and or diplomacy or ruling and exploring. Yeah, that, I mean, you just described what I think many would consider the perfect MMO. And I honestly, that's a tall order, man. That is a very tall order. Could it be done? Maybe. If I think an MMO like that could exist. Maybe AI will bring that game. Maybe. I think AI could help build the game. I don't know if AI itself will by itself will do that. I think AI could assist if used properly, could do that. I feel like in an ideal world, for a game like that to exist, the game and the players playing that game would have to be on the same page. And what I mean by that is, on the player side of things, this is my opinion, players would have to be invested in the world, invested in not just the journey, not just the end game, but the journey to get there. They'd have to care about the characters in the world that they exist in. They'd have to care about aspects like crafting, like mercantilism, like all that stuff. And on the development side, the studio would have to create gameplay loops and mechanics and elements to have the player care about that. Is it possible? Absolutely. I think it's possible. Is it hard? Would it be hard to do? Absolutely. Because here's the thing: players come in all shapes and sizes, and again, that's why I'm not going to knock people who want to get to endgame who really don't care about the sides, story stuff, and vice versa, because that's how they enjoy the game. And
it is.
I feel like for studios who are going to be successful, they need to recognize that And I think that's what's happening now. That's what we're seeing with, Space Marine 2. That's what we're seeing with, old school games like Lord of the Rings Online. That's what we're seeing with The World Within and World of Warcraft. Are games where they're taking into account that players come in all shapes and sizes, and they're doing their best. Again, nothing is perfect, but they're doing their best to answer those wants the player wants. Check out the books Awaken Online by Travis Bagwell. It is all of that. Awaken Online. Can you tell me more about this Unholy Pawn? Like what that sounds like? Is it from like the light or light RPG genre? Because I know that's become a popular genre. For those of you who don't know, the light RPG genre is a fantasy genre that takes like MMO like gameplay elements and basically puts it in a book. So the protagonist is essentially a player who's been. I think the best way to describe for those of you who watch anime, it's isekai, which is another genre. Basically, you're taken from the quote unquote real world and dumped into what typically turns into a gameplay world, like a video game world. Okay, so yeah, Unholy Pawn says it best. It's like Ready Player One, but in WoW-like world. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. That's a light RPG. I have not read it. I might check it out. It said Awaken Online by Travis Bagwell. The author's name sounds familiar. I might have heard of him, but I've never read it. Well, to be fair, Unholy Pawn, it's easier to have those elements in a book when you control who the players are and what the players like. Again, it's easy to write those out and want to have that in the game. It's hard for those elements to be successful if your player base is not into it. And again, it's not going to be across the board, different strokes for different folks, as the saying goes. So you'll have some people who are into it. The challenge from a gameplay perspective is the number of people into, we'll say, mercantilism enough to support the development time that's going to go into building that system. And that's where you run into the problem. Because you have players like Greg who like crafting.
I do.
But if they're not enough players like him, does the number of players justify the time spent in development? Because that does add development time.
Because it's me, yes, it does.
Because it's you, yes. Okay, Greg, you're gonna prop up the crafting system in a game all by yourself. Honestly, the way this guy was crafting in ESO, I could fucking see it.
Hey, I enjoy crafting.
I could see it. So, but yeah, I feel like we've reached a bit of a turning point in a positive direction. First of all, for World of Warcraft, and I'm gonna say this about fucking time. Thank God, Chris Metzen, you're a godsend. And again, that's not to disparage any of the team that was there before him, before he came back. Everyone has their gripes about World of Warcraft for various reasons, but I'm glad to see that they've stepped into this direction, because the game World of Warcraft. So for those who've never played World of Warcraft, or might not really understand the impact the game had on the online gaming space, World of Warcraft and games like it, EverQuest, Final Fantasy Online, but really World of Warcraft defined a generation. Again, they're coming up on 20 years. 20 years. Some people started playing, when they were 5, 6 years old, grew up playing this game. Some people like me played it, when it first came out, 2004. I was, 2004 when it came out. I was a sophomore going into junior year of high school at the time, So I remember it, and it defined a generation. It defined a genre of gaming. It's going to go into the history of gaming. It is in the history of gaming, so it's a big deal. And for them to have this upswing in success and be received as well as they have been, after so many, and I don't want to be negative here, but after so many, I'm gonna say stumbles, I'm happy to see it. And yes, Harper was part of the reason why I returned to WoW. Not the only reason, but she was part of the reason. So Unholy Pawn says, I remember playing EverQuest back in the day. He was in Ixar and maxed smiting or smithing. Did you mean smithing? Okay, yeah, you did mean smithing because he says you could sell Ixar armors and weapons on the first server. Yeah.
Early on in every MMO, smithing or armor crafting, weapons crafting seems to be a good trade if it comes to crafters, but it usually gets destroyed pretty quickly.
Yeah, it usually falls off because typically a lot of the best in slot gear is tied to, group content, like, what amounts to dungeons or raids, stuff like that. Yeah, and I agree. For me, I think the best thing that is, now we're getting into gameplay aspects, for most games, especially we'll say MMOs, is typically your consumables. Those I feel like have the most longevity, with crafting, are the consumables. So creating food or like potion consumables, those typically are, I think, what really nets you a net positive at the end game. But that's just my opinion. And the reason why I say that is because typically if the systems are in play to support it, those consumables, whether it's food, like they'll give you buffs or things that you won't find anywhere else that are like outside of your gear. Typically they'll give you an extra buff or something like that. Especially, I mean, in this case in World of Warcraft, for sure, you have like, food consumables or potions, things like that people really look for.
But consumables, yes, but even, I mean, every MMO economy eventually boils down to raw materials. That's where
yeah, that's another thing. Yeah,
that's what you want to do, is raw materials.
Is the gathering. Yeah, it's the gathering.
And it usually ends up being consumables. Usually will hold their own, but if you're looking at like a valuation type standpoint, it usually ends up that the raw materials it takes to make like smithing or armor or weapons usually costs way more for the raw materials than does the actual item.
That is true, yes, because typically those two, one feeds into the other, or they actually feed into each other. Because oftentimes you can use, we'll say like ores can go into some aspects of like armor crafting and leather working.
Well, and a lot of that's on purpose because people will farm the raw materials, like your high level crafters. I mean, it's kind of a way of doing it. Your high level crafters will farm the raw materials, put the raw materials on the market, and then if you come to them for gear, they'll tell you have to buy the mats.
Yeah, and Harper is correct. So WoW took a different direction, for the crafting, and I won't go into all of it. Partly because it's long-winded, and partly because I don't understand it all myself. Having returned to the game recently, it's kind of goes above my head a little bit. They've done a lot of changes in a positive way, but a lot of the crafting kind of goes hand in hand, and it does go in such a way that it's a net benefit to those who enjoy raiding and high level content. And yeah, like Harper said, cloth is basically not just for cloth armor, but primarily for bags, primarily for to hold all the shit that you get.
All the goodies.
All the goodies, yeah, all the goodies. So it's and that's one of the things that is an interesting gameplay loop, an interesting part of the journey / end game piece is the economy, is the crafting piece, is that aspect of community interaction. You know, the crafting. Um, and again, I've never been too entrenched in it, but it's always been an interesting aspect of mine because you look at games like Eve Online. I don't know if you've ever played that, but that's like one of the bigger um, sci-fi like MMOs, where the economy in there, as far as I remember, and it's been years since I played that game, the entire economy, because it's a sandbox MMO, meaning everybody plays on one server,
Mm-hmm.
is purely driven by the player base. So meaning, the developers have no input on that. It's purely driven by the player base. So it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, everybody has their tendency to loot everything. I know I do. I pick up pretty much everything.
It's not nailed down. It's going with me.
You know what? That sounds like something you would say, Greg. If it's not nailed down, it's going with me. Somebody clip that, because that is definitely a Greg thing to say. But yeah, I mean, again, I think I think the answer to the questions that we posed is it depends on who you ask. Some people like the journey, some people like the destination, some people like both. And honestly, I feel like studios now are listening to everyone. I guess is the best way I can put it. They're listening to their constituents in a way where they're trying to answer the problems of each party where they have a meaningful connection to the game. And again, I'm using WoW as an example here because it's what I'm have recent experience in, where they're listening to the guys and gals who want to play solo by introducing delves and making that a meaningful form of investment in the world, but also progression. They're listening to the folks who want endgame content, again in the form of delves as well, because that can be a form of endgame content because those have tiers, but also adding meaningful tiers to the raids that are coming out, to the mythic dungeons and stuff that are coming out, and making those meaningful and easy to get into and progress through. They're adding overland content that's again meaningful and impactful for players who want to take their time and go through each and every side quest and understand what's going on in the narrative. And they're listening to the guys who don't give a shit about any of that, just wants to get to endgame and play at the highest level in the character boost and in the ability to level quickly. And again, those aspects come with their inherent pros and cons. And again, that's going to be dependent on who you ask. My only thing, then, this is a hill I will die on, and again, it's my opinion, is the leveling aspect. I feel like leveling across the board, if you don't pay for it, is still a little too easy. I think that can be tweaked a little bit more, where it's not as quick, where it takes a little more. Back in the day, especially in World of Warcraft in the days, it could take you months to get to max level. Now you could do it in, like I said, you could do it in hours. And there are guides out there for you to do it literally in 5 or 6 hours.
Everybody out there with a really high level character right now is cheering you on, man. They're like, yeah, tell me about it, brother. Perfect. Because there are people that are more than happy to pay in-game gold to have another player level them, essentially.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And again, hey, if that's your thing, that's your thing. Don't let me duck your young man. Go ahead, knock yourself out.
There was a long time where in ESO there was a long time where all I did is run dungeons.
Yeah, I did that too.
It was super fast, and it was an easy way to help people level.
Yeah, help people level. Help people level. Get yourself items that you can then sell for tons of gold. Yeah. It was one of those things. And it was content that you could do if you only had limited number of time. I think that's another aspect that I completely failed to touch on because I had a squirrel moment. But I feel that is why, and that's what's also led to the change in atmosphere for what we're seeing in terms of being able to buy your way to end game, buy your way to max level. Is because guess what? Again, we're the generation. Myself, Greg, and I'm sure plenty of people in the chat. We're part of that generation that grew up with all of this, but we started at a time where we had the luxury of playing for hours. Now we don't have that luxury anymore, but we still want to play. People have jobs, kids, families. Some people have 2 jobs, 3
All that
jobs.
adulting bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. We're adulting, so we don't have hours and hours to play on a game. We only have a couple hours, so people want a way to meaningfully spend those, that hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours if you're lucky, to play a game. And again, studios are trying to answer that, and I think some of them are starting to find their sea legs in that regard. World of Warcraft being one of them, where they're doing their best to answer that and do it in such a way that it doesn't detract from other aspects. And that's a hard stack of books to balance. But hey, I tip my hat to them.
I can say this from what I've seen of World of Warcraft and what they're doing right now. It seems to be driving player enjoyment, player engagement. So keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just keep doing what
Absolutely.
you're doing.
Absolutely. And players, keep voicing your opinion on the things that you want, I guess is the best way I can put it. Keep speaking up, because the more you speak up, the more you'll get what you want. Well, to a degree. But I feel the more feedback that these studios get from us as a player base, as a community across the board, whether you're playing video games, whether you're playing co-op games, whether you're playing single player games, whether you're playing MMOs, whether you're playing TTRPGs, continue to speak up. Let these developers know what it is that you want to see, and as we're seeing, they'll do their best to provide. They may not always get it right, so you're gonna have to give them a little grace, but they'll do the best. And I think Saber Entertainment, and Space Marine 2 have done that. Blizzard, Activision with The War Within, World of Warcraft have done that, and several other games that have come out recently, they've done that. They've leaned into what their players want, and they've done their best to answer that. So kudos to them. But I guess my answer to that question that I posed was journey or destination, and for me, it's definitely destination. Oh, sorry, it's definitely both, journey and destination. Because I like having the shiny best in slot armor, damn it. But I also like the side quests. I like the story. I like to be invested in the world that I'm in. And on Holy Pawn, if the day ever comes where we do get that Ready Player One situation where we get, all the boxes are ticked, color me surprised. Do I think it's possible? Yeah. Do I think it's a difficult one? Yeah. It's gonna be hard. Because game players come in all shapes and sizes, and you'll have some elements of game makers who are going to want to lean into what's going to make them the most money, and some people who are going to find a balance. I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out.
And look forward to seeing lots of new and awesome games.
Yeah, definitely look forward to seeing what comes down the pipe next couple of years in terms of gameplay. Frank Brand says we're getting there with VR at least. I don't play a lot of VR, so I'm gonna take your word for that, buddy. VR is definitely a new landscape, and it has potential. I think for me, for right now, I'm going to stick with the old keyboard and mouse controller stuff. Having to invest in a headset and joysticks and all that, don't wanna. Not yet. But yeah, it's definitely its own animal. I'm excited to see where it goes because it's I mean, again, it's its own animal. It's had a lot of start and stops over the last couple of years. I think over the last 5 years, especially, it's really picked up and really found its legs. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Yeah. And see if maybe one day we'll get a VR MMO, like the Ready Player One universe. We'll see. I will tell you this though, the studio that does that first, they're gonna make a lot of money. They're gonna make a lot of money.
EDs.
They'll make a lot of money. And yeah, time will tell, man. Time will tell. But I think that's it. I think that's the end of
episode 30 or 67 for tonight.
Yeah. It was a nice discussion. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks you guys for getting involved and kind of giving your 2 cents. I highly recommend that you guys go out if those games that we talked about interest you. Lord of the Rings Online, World of Warcraft, The War Within, Space Marine 2. Get Space Marine 1 first and play that. Don't jump right into 2. It's my recommendation though. But if any of those games interest you, man, go out and play them. Go out and experience them. Dive into them. See what you can get up to. And keep an eye out for episode 68 where we dive. Talk about other stuff. But for those of you who haven't, follow us on our social medias. Links are in the chat. Please follow us on Twitter, YouTube. Join us on our Discord as well, where you can talk with us directly, and give us your take on the games that you're playing, and kind of your 2 cents on the industry and where it's going, where it's been. You guys are why we show up, why we sit down and have these conversations. So definitely give us that feedback. Awesome. Space Marine 2 is $60. My bum of a kid doesn't work. Freeloader. Well, if he's of age, put his ass to work. Go get a job. You want to go pay for it your damn self. Yeah, Infinity Core, you're right. Space Marine 1 was a fantastic game. Absolutely. And there's so many callbacks in Space Marine 2 to Space Marine 1. They did a great job. But Greg, anything from you on the back end stuff?
I think you covered most of it. It's I do want to encourage everybody, join our Discord, get engaged with us. There's a lot of things, especially coming into the 2025 season, that are going to be going on. This year the last 2 years we've only done I've only done one convention per year. 2025, my plan is to expand that a little more. Right now I will for sure be at GaryCon in 2025. That's all set, ready to go. Still, we'll be running some Cyberpunk games there, probably going to be running some Alien games there, and I'm not sure what else at this point. We're still kind of looking at that. So yeah, get out to one of these conventions. GaryCon in particular, if you're in the area or if you're not in the area, it's a nice area to come to and a wonderful small convention. So very nice atmosphere, great people. But get engaged on our Discord, and you can actually be up to date on what's going on. We do have some video series that we are working on. Actually going to be producing very soon a video series for Symborum. If you're not familiar with Symborum, it is a free league game. It is basically the European version of D&D in a that's a very short way of saying it, but
yeah. There's a lot of elements that go into it. It is created by Free League Press, which is an EU-based TTRPG developer that we've worked with in the past. We've had a number of their creators on. on the show. Had a brain fart for a second there, and they've come out with a number of absolutely fantastic IPs, and have developed some existing ones. Alien being one of them, Blade Runner being another one. So definitely, if you're curious, go to Google, Free League Press, check them out. They're absolutely fantastic. Their catalog is definitely top tier. As a matter of fact, I feel like we might have some stuff that we're going to be offering our audience from them coming, or we have that in the works.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
So yeah, that might be in the works, guys. Keep an ear out. But again,
swag, some free downloads, maybe some free.
Join our Discord to keep up to date on that. That's where we'll be posting any updates regarding that aspect of things. Aside from that, I don't think I have anything else.
Are you sure now?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure having everybody here, and really enjoyed all the chat. I mean, that's a big piece of what we're trying to do with this program. You probably noticed we're changing the program some, and trying to get back to the roots of it. And the idea is for this to be more of an interactive show. So yes, please come in, chat with us, give us your ideas. Interact with us through the chat. We, believe it or not, we can shut Rob up once in a while.
Damn, was I really? I was a little long-winded today. My bad.
that was below the belt, so sorry about that.
No, sometimes I run long in the tooth. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Let me. You got to buy me some time here so I can find a spot to raid into.
Okay. But yeah, again, guys, thank you guys for coming in. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week and weekend. Go out there and play some games. Whether you're playing at a table, playing on console, playing on PC, there's so many phenomenal games out there to play. So many great communities get involved in. Go out, have some fun, even if it's for an hour or two. So I got
a perfect spot to go.
Oh yeah, where we're headed?
Bet. She is playing Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 right now, so we're going to visit that bronze girl.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, there you go. You guys get to go ahead and see what we were yapping about. Yes. Maybe might turn you guys into Warhammer fans.
Hey, maybe we'll play some games too.
Yeah, that is actually something that might happen.
I've been watching these guys play Warhammer 40K Space Marine. I tell you what, I think we could do that. We could stream that. All right, and here we go. See you guys later.
Adios.
Well, I suck at raids, buddy.
He'll get better at that, I promise.
Someday. All right, now have a good night, guys. Thank you very much for showing up tonight.